Hello. Welcome into Snow the Goalie, a special. We're waiting on the press conference with Ivan Fedotov. Yesterday we have a show where, we talked in a lot of hypotheticals, a lot of, hey, will he, won't he, what's it going to look like? And now we're going to throw this right over because Ivan Fedotov is now a Philadelphia Flyer. We're going to throw it to the press conference right now, and then we'll recap in a little bit some thoughts, some feelings on what's going on. So here we go with Ivan Fedotov.
Is in charge of that. He'll be available. He'll be on the ice. He'll be with the team practicing, and then the coaching staff will decide if he plays or not. So we're excited to have him here. As far as a contract extension, it's something that we're working on. I don't expect it to be an issue. But nothing has been done as of yet. No, Felix is not on the roster, and that's where we had to get clarification from the NHL. He was on an emergency recall, so with adding Ivan to the roster, Felix had to report back to Lehigh Valley.
Ivan, how do you feel jumping into games where
Sure,
really
yeah,
important games for the
I know it.
team?
Yeah, I know it. Yeah, it's a very important game for all organization, for guys. Yeah, it's for me too. So if coach will have decision like and give me a chance to play, so I will play for sure. So
Yeah.
that's it.
I'm sorry. You know how coincidental this is. You guys are having, you're really up against it with goaltending. You didn't want to overwork Sam down the stretch. What do you think about a little bit of backlash or verbal backlash you guys might hear now?
From
Making this happen. That's just from the rest of the league. From the rest of the league.
as far as what, like,
Looking at the situation.
okay, there's nothing wrong. I don't see why that would be a problem. We didn't do anything wrong. He was under contract, and uh, before this season, for the last 2 years, and just reported now. So we added him to our roster. Nothing was done illegally, so I don't see why it would be an issue.
I'm sure you have friends in the NHL. When you've spoken to them who have, goalies in the NHL, what have they told you the biggest adjustment has been for them coming over here as far as handling the pace of play, the traffic, the rebounds versus what you experienced in Russia?
Mm, yeah, here sure like everyone know players like really good at playing in front of net, like behind, and it's more like some deflections and more scorers like. Um, but it's same thing for all goalies in Russia. You need to be, you have to be focus on the puck, like don't think too much. So it's all goalies with I had spoke like and talk. So not afraid, be what you do usually. So it's and be focused, follow the puck, follow the rhythm game. So it's of course a little bit all here like it's more faster, but it's for me it's really good. I like it when the game is fast. It's possible. So it's uh, we'll see. So.
Danny, how impressed have you been by Ivan's resolve? Seventh round draft pick in 2015. He's going through a lot. Can you just speak
Yeah.
to what he's been through and how he's gotten here?
Yeah, and that's what gives us confidence, that he can come and help us. He's been through a lot in his career. He's been a lot through in his life, his personal life. He keeps fighting. He keeps getting better. Keeps working at his craft. So it's big part of the reason why we feel comfortable, and we're excited to have him aboard. Uh, That's between his team over there, and his representative. I'm not aware of anything. And on our end, all we did was we got followed the lead of the NHL, get clarification on what we were allowed to do and how we could do it. So everything was done properly on our end.
You
Hmm.
know, guys, Shesterkin or Sorokin or any of those guys.
Yeah, little bit Sorokin, yeah, I know him. Yeah, our coach, like, long time coaching us, so it's, Sergei Naumov. So he good, really good, know him. I'm really good know him, like our coach, I mean. So it's Igor. Not we met early, not met early. So, but Bobrovsky, yeah, I know a little bit him, like, because sometimes he's living in Saint Petersburg. It's my hometown, so it's, yeah. So now in the NHL, so many Russian goalies. It's, yeah, and Kochetkov, I know him. So yeah.
Danny, did you ever maybe lose some hope that this would happen? I know it's been quite a while. Did you ever think this
It's
might
been a long
happen?
time. Yeah, it's been a long time. We were always, I think, hopeful that he would come. But yeah, it's been a long road. I give him a lot of props for to keep pushing and finally have the chance to come and hopefully it's a new chapter for him and he gets to start his NHL career and goes off in the wrong on the right foot. Sorry.
At all worried that there's big media to so could be an element of distraction for the guys. There's 8 games left.
Well, hopefully it's a little bit of a boost as well. We're coming down the stretch. Sometimes, you can't make trades anymore. So hopefully it's a little bit of a boost and gets everybody gets excited and so we can finish strong and find a way to get in the playoffs. Obviously, that's the number one thing around here these days. Yes. Yes, we've been upfront. Sam was kept in the loop. Felix was kept in the loop. We try to be as open as we can with our players, and it was going to affect them. But at the same time, we told Sam, you've earned the rights to be the number one. We believe in you. We trust in you. But we've been upfront with both of them.
Not today.
Well, we're not going to get in the timeline at this time. Maybe we can talk about that at a different time.
Not yet, not yet. But yeah, we met each other like from development camp, little bit. Yeah, he's remember me, I am too. So, but not yet. We don't have talked.
And just to clarify, if you guys get in the playoffs, Ivan would be eligible to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs, correct?
Correct. That's my understanding. That's what we got from the NHL. Yes.
One or two more. Ivan, where do you think the level of play is between KHL and here?
For sure. Yeah, it's here. It's, so many good players. Level it's higher, but in KHL, of course, has many players who are really good and can play here, but they there. So and I had this season like so many good games when we have to struggle with other team who has a lot of really good forwards. So it's, for example, like Kazanyak, Barset, Shpachov, Gusiev, like, and so many other guys. So it's, for me, it's a really, really important thing. Like, when every team has like as much as possible good players. So it's it's making you better. Like you can get better every day. So it's because for me, I want to get better every day. So if I'm not feeling yourself comfortable, and I don't feel like this, so it's bad. I'm a little bit sad. So I should to feel it.
Ivan,
Last one.
have you looked forward to the offseason a little bit? Do you want to stay in Philadelphia during the offseason? And are you open to signing a contract extension with the team?
Yes, sure. Yeah, I'm open. So it's now a little bit focus on the season. So and we'll see. Yeah, sure. I'm here like for. I hope it will be a long time together. So for sure. So thank.
We'll do a quick photo op.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, just gonna wait here a second and see if we get the photo up on screen, and if we don't, if you haven't seen the picture yet, here we go. The height difference between these two is absolutely astounding. Danny's, roughly 5'6" or whatever, 5'7", and Fedotov is the tallest goalie in Flyers history now. It's 6'8". So there are a few really interesting notes there, and I don't want to make this into a much longer thing than it needs to be, but it is an exciting day for Ivan Fedotov, the human being, who probably thought a year ago, especially 2 years ago, but especially even a year ago, that this was never going to happen. And kudos to the Flyers for being able to get it done. You have to also give them kudos on the fact that Briere said point blank that the discussion they had been having internally as an organization also kept both Sam Ersson and Felix Sandstrom in the loop as to what was going on. And that's big because culture, it's huge to not feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you. Now, the most notable thing, obviously, is that Ivan Fedotov is now a Philadelphia Flyer. He is not going to the A. We talked about this on yesterday's show, and we talked about it conceptually a week or so ago. The way that the Flyers have been able through the league, and the league is the one that has given them the guidance on this, the initial emergency recall, they were able to now replace Felix Sandstrom with Ivan Fedotov on that emergency recall, which doesn't count against the 4 that you're allowed to have post-trade deadline. So Fedotov is a Flyer. He is now the backup goalie. They did not get into which game he'll be starting. They do have a back-to-back coming up next week. It's going to be a really interesting time. Fedotov there, even mentioned that the conversation, when it comes to Torts and who's going to play and when he might play, he said he'll be ready and that, as long as the coach is willing to put him in and give him the opportunity to start, he'll be ready. So that's a really massive thing, obviously. Big stuff, really, really big stuff. And if you're looking for something to be even more excited about, you now have your backup goalie. This now, I think, also alleviates some of the pressure on getting Alexei Kolosov over here. We had heard a few times, including when Danny Briere came on the show last week on the Press Row show, that the visa paperwork was taking longer. Now, I don't want to speculate. I don't know why it might have taken longer there versus shorter for Fedotov. I don't know if it's because Fedotov had technically signed a contract with the Flyers 2 years ago. Maybe the visa paperwork had already been in the pipeline. I don't know if because Kolosov is Belarusian, if that process for getting a visa is different, or if, I really don't know. In Belarus versus Russia, is there an expediency thing? I don't know. But obviously it took longer to get Kolosov over. This now does take a lot of pressure off of that entire situation. Now you can take Kolosov, bring him over, and you can give him the rest of the season in the AHL and kind of get him used to this game and kind of get him used to being part of the organization. That's an exciting thing. But Fedotov, man, as a guy who is 27 years old, who has extensive experience in the KHL, had a really strong season, it's going to be really interesting to see what this looks like and to see what exactly they're going to be able to get out of him. It's a really big day. And again, it's really big for the human being, right? Because, again, Ivan Fedotov wasn't in play anymore. I mean, 2 years ago, he signs a contract. The Flyers kind of put out the image of him signing the contract, and he gets whisked away to put it nicely, and then goes off and serves a year in the Russian military. Then it looked like a year ago he signed a contract extension with CSKA Moscow, and it's like, oh man, all right, well I guess that's it. It's over. It's done. A couple days ago, we get the word that yesterday, they get the word that the KHL team terminated his contract, and that both sides had been working on it, between the KHL, the NHL, the Flyers, Moscow, the works, that they had been working on this thing. And I think just based on what Briere said there, and it's kind of hard to parse through all of it because it was a pretty quick press conference and there hasn't really been a deep dive. I'm sure that we will get Danny Briere here in the next few weeks on the show to kind of go over this with us, or Keith Jones to kind of walk us through how exactly this came to be and how quickly or how long it took to get this worked out. But it is an exciting day, and it's an exciting one, especially we don't know exactly what Fedotov's going to look like. We don't know what this is. I'm not going to try to say that he is the heir apparent, that he's going to be pushing to be the number one starter this year. We have no idea what he's going to look like, but it's still a very cool human interest story that a guy who looked like his dream of playing in the NHL was effectively over 2 years ago, and certainly even a year ago. Now he's going to get the chance to play here. And for the beginning of the year when we said, hey, if you're ever able to get another goalie from your system into Philadelphia to play for the Flyers, it would be great in a rebuilding year. Well, now it's not just this rebuilding year. You're in the midst of a very hotly contested playoff race, and now Ivan Fedotov figures to be a factor in that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes. I want to get to some of the questions, comments, and concerns that are over in the chat, and we always appreciate this. Of course, if you're joining us on YouTube, if you haven't done so already, please hit the like button, share the video, subscribe on YouTube to Snow the Goalie. We want to get to 3,000 subscribers here before the playoffs. It'd be really big. We have some pretty interesting news coming about this show and about what we're doing going forward. We have some cool stuff going on, and we're also working on the tailgate, hopefully here before the end of the regular season. We did have a meeting about it, so that's very exciting. We're looking forward to trying to get something up as a big thank you to everybody who supported the show this year. But I want to get through some of these comments over on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, we love you. We appreciate you. Twitter, same thing. But please, if you can, go over to YouTube and like the video, share the video, subscribe. If you are a podcast listener, by all means, go over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Pandora and subscribe to the show there. I don't think this episode will be getting dropped in the podcast feed, but yesterday's emergency podcast where we talked about the hypotheticals of if Fedotov does come over, what could it look like? What could it look like down the stretch? If you're a first-time viewer of the show, we like to get interactive here. Myself, Anthony SanFilippo, and of course, everybody's favorite former Flyers defenseman, Chris Therien, Bundy. I don't know where Bundy is right now. I know that Anthony was on the road, so we're kind of piecing this whole thing together. But Andrew Fawcett says he speaks good English. Yeah, so I will tell you this. Based on what I just heard, and you have to remember, I speak a few languages, and so there's like certain levels of fluency. You can tell that he's been working at this. There is more than a baseline fluency that he's got, and it's better than just like a few rehearsed lines. So he's like in that low conversational, which is good. Like it's clear that like he intended on learning English to eventually communicate here, and I think it's really gutsy on his part that his first press conference, this big moment for him, he isn't sitting up there with a translator. He went up, he went for it, and again, like fluency is very fluid, right? He did a great job. I mean, there are certainly some answers that you might have wanted to get more details out of, and he's going to get better with it, but really cool. Allison L. mentioned that you hate that you can't hear the questions, and that's one of the problems, I think, when we do press conferences like this, we, in media, there are very few teams that actually mic up the media, which I don't totally understand. I think especially for the fans at home, it is good to be able to hear the two-way conversation. And I saw people getting really upset with some of the questions, like this one. Kenny Powers Mullet said, why were they asking political questions already? Retribution from Russia. Like there was a question in there. I don't know who asked it. I couldn't make it out. But a question about like something on the Russian side. And then I think there was also a question about whether or not NHL teams were going to be upset that they might have manipulated a loophole. And I think that comes back to the question of the initial emergency recall that led to Felix Sandstrom coming up in the first place, and that they were essentially able to kind of use that and pop Fedotov into his place. Briere said, we followed the league's rules. We did exactly what the league told us to do. So there, like from my vantage point, there can't be much of a concern, and there really isn't a reason to be upset about it. If you're some other team in the league, like I don't know every other team's goalie situation right now, But are there many teams that are actively hurting that they have used all of their post-deadline recalls and they got screwed over? Like, I'm not so sure. Same Old says, welcome, Ivan. You'll be excellent with the Flyers organization. Yukon H, I see him playing one of the back-to-back games or within a week. I think you're more likely to see him next week, just so that there's the ability. Like, we don't know how much he's been working out. We don't know how much he's been on the ice. Obviously, it's been a bit since he's played a game, so you want to make sure that he's in game shape. You don't want to run the risk of having the guy come in and like pull something in his first game, right? Brendan O'Neill, welcome to the Orange and Black. Andrew Fawcett, he's the backup now. Felix is off the roster. That's the big thing. Felix Sandstrom has been sent back down to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. So Fedotov will be your backup down the stretch on a potential playoff run. Wild stuff. Absolutely wild. Zilla092, Danny and Jonesy, close to the vest, quiet and ninja-like. Again, they strike. Love this. By the way, I know that like the joke has been going around for a while about, could he have smuggled Mishkov in his suitcase, like all that kind of thing. There was one nice little note in this press conference. Somebody did ask about if he has met Matvei Mishkov before, if there's a relationship, and he said that they had met at development camp before, but he hasn't talked to him. I don't know if he meant that he hasn't talked to him since development camp or if he hasn't talked to him since this deal was worked out for Fedotov to come play stateside, but that's really interesting. Let's see. We have somebody writing in Cyrillic in the comments. I can't read it, so I'm not going to pull it up. Somebody says that Smitty Smith says that he looks like a young Brian Boucher. A lot of people complaining about the questions that were asked that weren't about hockey. Andrew Fawcett also says if they can bring Mishkov over next season, I'll lose it. I wouldn't get your hopes up about it, but then again, we thought that the Fedotov possibility was off the table. We didn't really know where the Kolosov deal sat, and all of a sudden, like, they're working on a visa for him as well. Really hard to know what that's going to look like, and I wouldn't get your hopes up, but it's still exciting. Jonathan Nesbitt asks, what number is he getting? So this one's interesting. So Fedotov has worn number 28 in the past, and he is not going to assume the Claude Giroux number. He apparently is going to invert it. He's going to wear number 82. Number 82. So that's, I don't know. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like he should have taken the number 28? Do you feel like 28's a number that they're not going to want to give out because they view it as, Claude Giroux's number and they might retire the number 28? Like, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. I don't want to say that there's something in the works there because it's clearly not, but it's interesting. I do want to get to this too because there is something absolutely wild, and I said at the end of the press conference that I wanted to make sure that we were able to show it to you guys. There are pictures of Briere and Fedotov together, and here we go. So there's Danny Briere and Ivan Fedotov. That is a very big difference in height. Again, Danny Briere 5'6", 5'7", probably. Ivan Fedotov 6'8". Do we think Fedotov is kind of bending at the knees a little bit there? I'm not totally sure. Ryan over on Twitter says, really happy for Ivan and happy that Danny B and the organization was able to make this happen. Eric Wisniewski, maybe getting a little bit too excited here, but that's okay. NHL potential starter here. There was one other thing that I wanted to get to from that before we head out here, and that's about his potential contract, because this really is the thing that I think a lot of people have been clamoring for, is some information about, because if you remember, the Flyers signed him to a deal 2 years ago. Then the military service thing happened. The team requested to the league, can we suspend the contract? Can you port the contract for a year until his military service is over? And then he signed that deal with Moscow after he got out of the military, which is a big part of why everyone thought that there was no chance he'd ever come over. Well, because they ported it for a year, technically the contract has been valid since the start of the season, which means with 10-ish games left to play and a potential playoff run, this is the end of that contract. They don't extend it. They don't say hey, we're going to give you, or we're going to extend that the contract between the player and the team to next year, and we're going to allow you to sign him to a temporary contract now. That's not what's happening. When when their season is done and when this postseason or whatever is done, he will become an unrestricted free agent. The question was brought up during the press conference, and it was a very good question. What's going to happen? Is Fedotov open to re-signing with Philadelphia? And he was like, yeah, of course. And then also said, I hope to be here for a long time. Briere wouldn't comment on where things stand on that. I think that obviously the bigger issue is they wanted to get him over in the first place. So will he extend? I would think, listen, it's all speculation, right? Everything's speculation. I don't know anything about it. I haven't talked to Danny or to Jonesy today, right? But my hunch is that if you're a player who has now been given the opportunity to come play in this league, this team has been with you through thick and thin. They're the team that drafted you. They've stuck with you this many years after drafting you. They managed to figure out, negotiate your way from the KHL to the NHL. I have to think that there's going to be a loyalty factor to this. I could be totally wrong. If he comes in and he plays way above his head and it just, flips everything, the way that the goalie market is this offseason, is it possible that another team could try to swoop in? I guess. You'd want to think that at least there'd be some loyalty factor to helping this guy finally get his opportunity to live out that dream of playing in the NHL. So it's really cool. Eric Wisniewski calls Fedotov going 2-0, 1 shutout, 94% save percentage, 1.99 goals against. Wild. Let's see. Andrew Fawcett also pointed out that during the press conference, he said that he's friends with Sorokin. There were questions about whether or not he would end up, or if he knew anyone else in the league, if he's talked to any of those guys. So Kirk Clifford says Kolosov and Fedotov Russian connection as goalies. Let's see. Zilla notes that he thinks that Fedotov is an upgrade over any backup we have already in the organization. Howard over on Facebook, it's a big deal. Jonesy and Danny are the real deal. Let's see. There were a few other things here before we head out. We get a lot of the humongous big references. I don't think he's going to be Brizgalov. Some question. Here you go. Howard again. This proves you can rebuild while still achieving. You will see. I mean, this is certainly an outside the box move. It's certainly not one that has a lot of precedent, bringing over a goalie who it appeared had no chance of ever coming back here and making it work. So let's see. Lee Carasso says, did you see the picture with Bob Clark? Yeah, it's actually the thumbnail of this episode is the picture of Fedotov along with Bobby Clark, with Danny Briere, and with Keith Jones all together. That's a really cool moment. Really neat picture. I'll pull that up here in a second. But Ryan Ingerick, really, really happy for Ivan and really happy that Danny B and the organization got this done. CJ asks, when do you think he'll make the first start? All right, let's take a look at the schedule really quick because, like I said, they're not going to put him into a position where he's going to potentially get hurt. I don't remember what his last game was with Moscow, but there's a lot here. There's travel involved, right? So they're back at it tomorrow against the Blackhawks, Monday against the Islanders at home, or do you wait the full week? So I don't know. Is Monday against the Islanders too soon? And I think that there's also the question of, do you really want to put this guy in a game against an Islanders team that's also chasing the same playoff spot, the same wild card that you're chasing? That is a ballsy call, right? Like that really, if you opt to put this guy in his first start and it's against the Islanders, the positive is home ice advantage. Not that it really matters. This guy's never played in one of these NHL arenas in a regular season game before, so it doesn't really matter to that end, right? But do you have him start at home, let him take in the appreciation of the home fans? Like, I'm sure they're going to announce him at the Chicago game, right? But do you put him in that high-stress situation on Monday in a game that you really do need to win? Or do you wait until Friday, next Friday, against the Sabres as the first half of a back-to-back? They play at Buffalo and then at Columbus. That is a very interesting question. I want to know in the comments below where you think, actually, you know what? The hell with it. I'm producing this show, this absolute last second show that we put together. I'm going to drop a poll over on YouTube where we have almost 400 people hanging out with us. Appreciate that today. I'm going to put a poll because I want to know what you think out there. When should Ivan Fedotov start? You can start dropping it in the comments if you want. Should he start on, what did I say, next Friday? Or should he start against the Islanders? It's a ballsy call. Now, listen, Torts is one for ballsy calls. He's certainly one for making the decisions that you don't necessarily expect him to. That's about as high crunch. Like, if you want to see what a guy is truly made of, I don't know if I'd have the chutzpah to do it. Torts might. Here, the poll is now up on YouTube. So while I said we love everybody on Facebook and over on Twitter, you can now participate in the poll over on YouTube. When should Ivan Fedotov get his first start? Monday against the Islanders at home, or next Friday on the road against Buffalo at Buffalo? Well, I'll leave that up there for a little bit. Well, the votes are coming in. Votes are pouring in. Appreciate that. By the way, if you haven't done so, like the video, share the video, subscribe on YouTube. And if you're a podcast listener, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Pandora, wherever else you get your podcasts. If you're on Google Podcasts, you have to pick another app because they're killing off Apple Podcasts. Very sad. Let's see. So somebody was speculating that Mike Sealski is the one who asked the question about Russia. Not sure if that's true. Andrew Fawcett brought up the idea of the loophole salary cap intervention through LTIR. Like that to me is a bigger concern, right? Tampa has been able to manipulate LTIR in the past ahead of leading into the playoffs. I think that's a bigger thing. Again, I don't know which team would really have an issue with how the Flyers went about this. I think, again, on like a human level, you're happy for this guy being able to get over here. I can't imagine there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to file a grievance with the league. Is anybody going to really do that? I can't imagine. Rob Greeley asks over on YouTube, was the NHL a little bit more flexible to make this happen with the absence of redacted? I don't think so. I don't think that had anything to do with it because you're not making up a new rule. If the rule is the rule and the Flyers checked with the league to make sure they weren't manipulating that rule, I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with redacted in his situation. Now, remember, they did get some salary cap relief when redacted was told to surrender to police. So I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think that they're going out of their way to allow the Flyers to manipulate the emergency call-up rule. That guy over on YouTube says might have to wait until the live feed ends to hear the interview. Well, you can, or you could just scrub back and then you can come back to this. Part's the beauty of the live stream over on YouTube. Everything that happened, the press conference started at the very beginning of this video. You can go back there and then you can come back and, find this little part in the video. This is why we love live streaming, right? Kenny Powers Mullet says, I was skeptical of the new regime when they first took over. Wasn't very confident it would work, but Jonesy, Briere, and Hilferty, et cetera, have all had a stellar first season. Full credit to those guys. Look, you could say what you want. I know that the Cutter Gauthier thing, the way that went down, there have been a lot of questions. There were questions about whether when Dan Hilferty came on the show and said what he said about, Gautier's going to have a hard time here and he's earned it. There were some people, even I think internally, who were a little bit upset with that line. He admitted he was wearing his fan hat that day. I think that there were some other things said, like Torts kind of said wouldn't know him from a hole in the ground or whatever. And I think that there are definitely people like Gautier's coach even said something about being kind of surprised by how the Flyers handled. All right, if you want to say that in the moment was a negative handling, a lot of people reacted positively to it. Maybe outside of Philly they didn't. But all right, think about it. The Gauthier news didn't leak, and they had known for almost a year that he wanted to be moved, that he didn't want to be a Flyer. They worked at it, and it didn't come to fruition. All right, fine. That was one thing that was put out there, and it didn't leak. And then the trade goes down, and everything happens. The Kolosov thing, to some extent, that kind of came out of nowhere, and knowing that he was going to potentially come over, apply for a visa. This Fedotov thing came out of absolutely nowhere. There were no leaks. There was no indication that he was going to make it over here before the end of the year. The only thing that maybe that some people have like tried to kind of piece together is that when Jonesy said on this show a few weeks ago that, or a month or so ago, that they have a lot of goalies in the pipeline, a lot of Russian goalies that we hope to have over here sooner than later. I think most people, including myself and Ant and Bundy, I think we all thought that meant, oh, he's talking about Kolosov because that makes the most sense. I don't know. I can't imagine that they thought that this was a realistic opportunity, but I could be wrong. Dean Godowski says, haven't had this many Russians on the team since 2004, right? Love to see it. Kimberly over on Facebook says maybe he can help the power play. Let's see. I think that might be about it. There are some other things. Tony Lou saying he's NHL ready. It's okay to get excited. Remember Roman Checkmonic, similar situation. John L. asks, which of our two Russian goalies is supposedly better? That's a really good question. So the honest indication is Kolosov is the guy that they think long-term has a bigger future with this organization. He's 22 years old versus, Fedotov's 27. So if you're looking at timeline, and I'm going to be really careful in how I say this because I don't want this to get misconstrued. We entered this season with Redacted as the starter and with Sam Ersson as the backup. And the big question all year, and it even goes back to when we announced that we were partnering with the Flyers for the season. Keith Jones said, there are only so many top-level goalies, and you have to decide if you're willing to pay a goalie what he thinks he's worth. And we said even back to last year, like Ant reported a few times, that the Flyers had been approached by other teams, essentially like provisional offers for Carter, redacted for Carter Hart. And it was, if he's cleared, if nothing comes of the investigation, this is what we're willing to offer. And I think that the Flyers were ultimately interested in the idea of trading Carter Hart and putting Sam Ersson in as the number one and then letting the backup situation kind of unfold. Because, again, they said rebuild, and the idea was we're going to be able to rotate in a Sandstrom. You might be able to rotate in eventually when he gets over a Kolosov. They had Cal Peterson to be like the veteran backup. The way that things played out, you're now in a situation where, like, you don't owe any of these guys a lot of money. Yes, Fedotov is an unrestricted free agent. Yes, I still do think that there's going to be a loyalty factor to it. Is it possible that he signs a pretty decent, affordable contract? Yeah, like, we don't know. It's hard to sign a guy to a big deal. I would not be surprised if you see him sign a 1-year deal or maybe like a 2-year deal with an option for a third. Like, I don't know what that's going to look like, but he's 27 years old. He's going to want to prove himself at this level and be able to try to maximize what he's able to make. I don't think he'll be able to do that in a couple of months. I think it will be something where, like, get a year in as a backup or, like, really impress out of camp and, like, try to push for the number one job next year and then see where the chips fall. Kolosov is definitely a guy that they see as being part of the future, long-term, 22 years old. Fedotov at 27, not really a long-term piece, but then again, if he signs here and if he is way better than expected, and if he pushes for a number one spot, then, like, I don't know. Like, then you're in a really, really interesting situation. So, let's see. Andrew Goldenberg over on YouTube says, surprised Fedotov wasn't in his goalie equipment answering questions with his mask on as reporters threw pucks at him. Rob Greeley said that Danny and Fedotov next to each other because of how big and small looked like Rocky and Bullwinkle. That guy says, when I met Bundy, that's exactly how I looked next to him. All right. Ryan Ingrich asking about what does intern Andrew think? Does he understand what's happening with 216-degree fever? I've actually been told it's a 220-degree fever now, so got to be really careful there. CMAC claims that Frank Saravalli is saying a possible 2-year extension. I have not seen that yet as I'm trying to, like, manage this poll. Let me see. I'll go over to Twitter really quick and see if Saravalli did put something out here in the last 10 minutes or so. If he did, great. I don't see anything there yet. Maybe he's talking about it over on Daily Faceoff, but I'm not sure. I don't see anything there about a 2-year extension. We'll see. We'll see what that's going to look like. Eric Wisniewski, though, does bring a really good point up. You're not bringing Fedotov over to lose him if he outplays Cal and Sandstrom. Steve W. says Sandstrom's a UFA at the end of the year, so maybe they let him go. Keep Fedotov and Kolosov and Erson. It's entirely possible. Remember, they also drafted a couple of goalies, and I think the idea there is that they're just going to keep trying to, like, I don't want to say they're going to try to become a goalie factory the way that Howie says that the Eagles are a quarterback factory, but man, you go through all this time that the Flyers haven't had reliable goaltending, and then just when it looked like the guy who was supposed to be the franchise netminder gets taken off the board for very serious allegations, that whole thing is going to play out, and that could take years for it to play out, and we've talked about that at length. Just when it looked like, man, what looked like a strength with a good goalie tandem is about to get blown up. Now you look at it and you say, all right, even if Fedotov doesn't amount to anything, you at least have Kolosov and you have this pipeline of goalies. They've at least really tried to get themselves set up for success long-term at that position. Let's see. HC says it's funny to me that he finally comes here when the Flyers starting goalie position is up in the air, almost like he didn't want to be in a competition. Nah, that's not what this is. It is going to be interesting, though, to see how this plays out. I don't see a scenario where the Flyers, unless Fedotov is like unbelievable in every way, like you're not going to have him be your number one goalie down the stretch or in the playoffs. But it is going to be nice if they can go into the playoffs and he's playing really well, and then you do have a strong goalie tandem. And then if Torts wants to ride the hot hand in the playoffs, you can. Now, I get it. Like, I'm sure that wherever Anthony SanFilippo is right now, he's probably gone, Russell, you can't say. You don't know what he's going to look like. You have no idea what he's going to look like. He might be good. He might be bad. You have no idea. It's true. It's entirely true. However, at the same time, it's also okay to think that there's a chance that the guy's actually going to be good. I'm just saying. Just saying. Last couple of things here. There are so many comments here. I wanted to get to them as many of them as possible, but I don't think it's going to be possible. Eric asks, if he wins the first game, wins the second, why not split games 50-50? Sam takes the playoffs. Sam will be well rested. I don't see it. I don't, but maybe. I just can't imagine. Over on Twitter, this person says, get him in the game tomorrow against a really weak Hawks team. I can't imagine they're going to put him in tomorrow. I just don't see it. I could be wrong. I don't see it. I think that's way too short notice. Ammo23 says, I can see Torts starting him tomorrow. Tyler Prokofsky, I like the first half of a back-to-back, so that'd be next Friday. Zilla says, I'm playing a Monday. Screw it. Joe Papel, back-to-back in Columbus. That's an interesting one. Wait until Columbus. K-Red says, Fedotov last played on March 8th. That's exactly why I don't think you're going to see him tomorrow. I think he's going to need to kind of stretch out a bit. And you're going to want to make sure that he's getting acclimated before you throw him in. Derek Mayfield is advocating, though, throw him in the deep end, play him on Monday. Okay. Dean says, play him on Wayne Simmons night. That's April 13th. I would imagine that we'll see him before then. All right, I think we are good. I see a lot of people saying play him in Chicago, Columbus. Zilla making a good point, hit the like button. Ryan says start him on Monday. Why not let him start tomorrow, says Massimo Cerelli. I just don't think he's ready. Although I don't know. I don't know. We don't know if he's been on the ice. We know that he hasn't played an active game now in almost 3 weeks. So it would probably be a risky proposition to put him in there. But we'll find out. At home against the Islanders, says Jack K-Man over on Twitter. All right. I think that I don't want to say that we're running out of some steam here, but I do think that it's probably time to go. This went a lot longer than I anticipated it going. I appreciate everybody who joined in the comments section. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, subscribe. This show, we have so many things going on at Snow the Goalie. We will be back as a show, as a collective. Myself, Ant, and Bundy will all be down at the Flyers Blackhawks game tomorrow. That's Saturday, 7 o'clock puck drop against the Chicago Blackhawks. For the Press Row show, if you didn't know, we do the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator, and above sea level. Make sure you like this channel, you subscribe to the channel, you ring the little bell so you're notified whenever we go live. Sometimes it's for the Press Row show. Sometimes it's for the morning after recap. Sometimes it's for like a normal episode of the show like 2 days ago. Sometimes it's an emergency episode like yesterday. Sometimes it's a special episode that I just kind of like threw together really quickly, and we got a nice big audience and we appreciate it because we love all of you. You're all great. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you like, share, subscribe, ring that bell, and we will be back tomorrow with the Press Row Show, pregame, intermission, and postgame show. Keep an eye out for the time. It's entirely possible we'll go a little bit earlier than normal. Typically, we do a 6:30 start for pregame for a 7 o'clock game. Depends on whether or not Ant and Bundy want to get in on it a little bit early tomorrow to address this, to talk about Fedotov. And like I said, I would not be surprised. I'm not saying tomorrow. I would not be surprised to see a Danny Briere or a Keith Jones on this show at some point in the next week or so to talk about this, because there are so many things, so many questions that we have, and I'm sure that you as fans have, about how did this happen? How long has it been in the works? And what did they expect going forward? Massimo, by the way, with the Italian in his veins coming out, just a little bit on a Good Friday. It's Good Friday. Some would call this a great Friday. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, not to be sacrilege, but a little bit great. Dave Waitman says, best Siberian podcast. I don't know. It might be. It's possible. Not sure. Zilla, you're welcome for doing the emergency broadcast. Never a dull moment is about the best way to describe what this all is. So a big thank you again. And Nico says, vamos. That's right. We've got the Phillies playing this afternoon. What a Friday, all right? Ivan Fedotov is now a Philadelphia Flyer. Opening day for the Phillies and only hours away. And then it's like 6 straight days or 5 straight days of Phillies baseball. It's a great time, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for finding the show. And again, like, share, subscribe. Find us over on your favorite podcast app as well. And if you haven't done so, hit that like button because that does help people find the show over on YouTube. So for Ant and Bundy, for intern Andrew with his 216-degree fever, I'm Russ. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this special edition of Snow the Goalie. Ivan Fedotov, your new backup, Ivan Fedotov, is a Philadelphia Flyer. Talk to all of you on Saturday on the Press Row Show.